yeah, we'll make sure to send out the recording afterwards, and as well all the links and places that she suggests that you guys go check out. So thanks again, everyone, for being on. I'm sad this is the last time we'll be meeting up with this group, but I'm excited to start today. So take it away, Ashley.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And last time I couldn't see the chat box, so hopefully this time I will. We've made some changes. Feel free to pop some questions in there. Yeah, no, I can't because I'm full screen on mine, but that's fine. I wonder if there's a different way I can do this. Sorry, I'm just going to try something. Let's see. I'm going to share with you guys. Okay, can you see that? Good, awesome, thank you. And I'll put you into, I'm just gonna see, I don't think I can see the chat again. Like, so if you wanna just watch for that, if something comes up.
If you're sharing your screen, you definitely won't be able to see it.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, welcome to Workshop Digital Marketing, maybe I should know the name of it. Digital Marketing Workshop number 3. So we're going to talk about determining your ROI. This ultimately just pulls everything from the first and second workshop and compiles it all together for this last final piece. So hopefully you guys have lots of knowledge on those first ones and you implemented some of those tactics. So this will all make sense for you. So a quick overview of what we're going to discuss today. We're going to look at a review of the previous class details. So we'll go over the first and the second class again. I realize we went over the first last time, but again, it's been a little bit of time. So we'll go over that quickly. I had some questions about Google advertising, which initially was supposed to be a part of the last workshop. And because of the COVID situation, we subbed out some COVID information in there. So I put that into this class. And then we're also going to talk about comments and feedback. This was another question that I had, basically responding to both positive and negative comments and feedback online. So whether it's on your social media or on Google or really anywhere that people can leave comments. And then we're going to look at our social engagement review. So this is a review from the organic posting that we talked about in the first workshop. So what you're looking at tracking on that kind of information. And then we're going to look at the Facebook funnel that we reviewed in the second workshop. And we'll look at what kind of tracking to do on an ad funnel like that and how you track your success. And basically if it was worth your return on investment. We're going to talk about some lessons learned. These are lessons that I learned specifically. However, I'd love for you guys to pop in here if you have anything that that you've learned so far that you think would be really helpful to share. I'll give you some extra tips for success, for online marketing in general, and then questions. Again, feel free to ask questions throughout the whole process. Always welcome and love to hear questions. So review of class 1. We'll go through this fairly quickly. Hopefully you guys have a good grasp on this, but again, feel free to stop me or pop something in the chat if you have something to say. So we really want to define your why. Why does your business exist? And how can you help your audience? Ultimately, this is the best kind of content that you can produce that people will be engaged. And what does the voice of your business sound like? I had a talk with Rita actually the other day, specifically about the voice of her business, because she said, I think it sounds like me, but my husband probably thinks it sounds like him. So it's making sure that you come together on things like that and determining what your audience looks like and the best voice that suits your audience. We looked at who your ideal client is. Don't mind the Fredrickson's thing there. I'm sure you guys have seen this. We talked about it last time. I left it up here just in case she was on and wanted to see everything there. So who's your ideal client? What do they do and where do they hang out online and offline? Does everyone feel like they have a good grasp on this? Just type yes maybe in that chat box if you feel like you do. If you don't, then maybe type no so we can get a gauge of how everyone's feeling about their ideal audience. We also looked at Google Business Listing. This is a really good example here from Frederickson's. All the information is up to date. Again, I mentioned last time, updating the outside picture would probably be best. Has anyone had a chance to go and check out their Google Business Listing, and are they happy with the pictures that are on there? I see some nods. Matt, thanks. Good. And Google Analytics on your website. So later on in the course today, we're going to look at some actual Google Analytics and what's really important to be reviewing when you are looking at your ROI. So again, I'm really pushing this. I just want to make sure that you guys have your return or your Google Analytics on your website. We also looked at some challenges with Google. Again, I left this on here hoping that the ladies from NetSet would be on or that they could see this. When challenges like this do come up with Google, just make sure to grab ownership of it says NetSet, but they're not NetSet anymore. They're ExploreNet now. So they can grab ownership of this and change that information. So has anyone else run into any challenges with Google? I know that right now there's a lot of, feel free to just type in the chat box or even turn your mic on and chat, but we have a few clients right now that have new businesses that are trying to get their business listed with Google, but because of the COVID situation, Google isn't recognizing new businesses very quickly. So it's been a few months and they still haven't recognized this new business, even though we have actually approached them about getting these Google business listings done. So there obviously is a lot of challenges right now. But if you guys are having any challenges too, I'd love to hear about them just for information's sake, so that we can share them. We also talked about some fundamentals of content, or the fundamentals of content. Again, making sure that if you are putting content out, there are ways that you can, you can not follow this all the time, but ultimately if you want the best engagement on your organic posting or ad posting, you want to make sure that you're trying to inspire, entertain, educate, and persuade your audience. Okay, class 2 review. So the funnel. How's everyone feel about the funnel? Good? Type a good in the box. I'm just going to make you guys keep typing in that comment box. I'll make you engage. Okay, so we talked about creating a new cold audience. Quick review of cold audience and warm audience. A cold audience is going to be someone that doesn't know about your business yet or your products or services yet. This is someone that would be new to your business, whereas a warm audience already has a good idea of who you are and what you offer. So when we're doing funnels, we always want to try to encourage cold audience so that we can gain more followers and gain more traction with those. So our first ad is an awareness ad. Again, in the second class, we looked at that McCullum Roofing ad. It was the picture of Darren standing in front of his truck, and it was talking about what they had to offer. Then appeal to pain points. Again, this can be one ad or multiple ads. We want to offer an incentive to purchase. In the case of the example that I showed the last class, it wasn't really a discount or a deal. So there's different ways you can do that. I don't know if you guys remember, but they offered sort of peace of mind, where they were giving a quote that summer to do the work for the next summer. So it gave people that time to save up money or whatever it was they needed to do. They recognized that that was something that their audience was really looking for, and it worked well for them. And then you want to encourage repeat purchases, upselling, and referrals all the time. Any questions? Has anyone done or started any ad funnels since the last class? If you have, just type a yes in there, and Elise can tell me. I see there's 12 comments. I hope that there's lots of
yeses, lots of yeses coming through.
Good. Okay, one-off advertising. So we talked about one-off advertising. The example for this one was the job posting from Can Do Rail Services. When's the best time to use one-time advertising? So if you're doing some hiring or recruitment, this is a really good opportunity. If you have a sale or a special deal, also a good opportunity. If you are, keep in mind when you are doing these one-off advertising, if you are doing it to a cold or warm audience, how you want to position the ad and how you want to talk about the product or service. If it's someone who knows you already, then obviously you don't need to give as much detail about your business. Whereas if it's a cold audience, then you'll definitely need to provide them with more information about what it is you offer or who you are. We also looked at when to advertise locally. Actually, I'd love for you guys too to comment in the chat box if you have advertised locally for your business. Where have you advertised? Like in the newspaper, online, Brandon Sun, like anything specifically? I'd love for you guys to just jot it down there, and then at least when they're done, you can just maybe read them out. So when's a good time to advertise locally? If you have a specific product or a service that suits a local audience, this one feels kind of like a no-brainer. Obviously, you're not going to advertise something that doesn't fit to Brandon or another local place that you're advertising in. You're looking to gain brand awareness to a potentially cold audience. You position your business as an expert in the industry. That's awesome. Oh, and seasonal highs for your business. So if you're coming up to, if your business has seasonal highs and lows, then this is a good place to do that as well. Any local advertising in there, Elise?
Oh yeah. We have a few who advertised in the Sun, phone book, Facebook, Google, direct mail, radio. So quite a few.
Good. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about Google. So there are tons of different ways that you can advertise with Google. Has anyone advertised with Google as of yet? If you have, maybe pop a yes into the chat box. At least if they have, can you just let me know who it is? Because I'd love to get some feedback on that later on. You can tell me later, it's fine. But so there are multiple ways that you can advertise with Google. Hi, Rita, you joined at the perfect time. We're talking about Google. I know this was your question.
I've been here the whole time. I've been shoving McDonald's into my mouth.
Fair. Okay, so let's talk about Google search ads. So what are Google search ads? You can see the example here on the right-hand side. So I Googled sanitizer. I felt like this was very timely right now that people are looking for sanitizer, and I knew there would be ads for it, of course. So the top three, there was probably about 10 ads, but I just screenshotted the top three here. So these three are all paid advertisements. The one at the top is bidding the highest amount to be up at the top like that. It's also possible that we'll get into this as we go down further, but depending on the time of day that I searched this, there may have been people that were higher up before and then ran out of dollars for the day. So this may fluctuate depending on what time of day it is and how many people have searched for that item, that product, that keyword. So we'll get into that as we go. But ultimately, search ads are text ads that are displayed among search results on Google. So it's the written content that you see on Google is a search ad. So when you use a search ad, it's based on the keywords that you use. I should have wrote keywords in there. If you're using those keywords and you have the highest bidding, then you're going to rank higher on Google. It's also based by locations, dollar invested. That's what I just said. Sorry, I should have changed those around. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a Google Ads account. So I'm not going to walk you through this because it's really self-explanatory. You can just go onto Google and follow the prompts for it. I do highly recommend that when you set this up that you use the same email address as your Google My Business and your Google Analytics account. This is all Google. It all falls under the same platform, so it just makes life much easier to keep those all together. That being said, if you do ever work with an agency or an outside company or anything like that, they can run ads for you under their accounts as well. So there's a variety of options anyways. A quick note with this, I think I've said this multiple times, and I will continue to say it multiple times. When you are sending people back to your website, make sure that you're sending them to the page that's relevant to what they're searching for. So if I'm searching for sanitizer and I click on someone's ad for sanitizer, I want to go to the page that has the sanitizer. I don't want to go to the page that has all of their products listed or their homepage of their website and have to look for the sanitizer. If you're sending people to not the exact place, then they're not going to look for it. People are lazy ultimately. So I will continue to say that as we go, mostly because it's in my lessons learned. Okay, so we're going to start a campaign. I did a campaign here just to show you guys, just for the photography side of the business, so you can kind of see how it plays out and how it looks. Depending on how you set up your Google ad, this may look a little bit different, but ultimately it's the same information. So, and Google does, as with everything online, they do change things on occasion, but ultimately this is what we're looking at right now. So we're going to set a goal. So Google ultimately makes goals for you to pick for your campaigns. So the options for goals are listed here: sales, leads, website traffic, product and brand consideration, brand awareness and reach, app promotion, local store visits, local store visits and promotion, sorry, that's one, or no goal. So this ultimately depends on your business, right? If I want people
question.
Yeah, for sure.
So sometimes when I've faced this, I'm like, well, what's the difference between a sale and a lead? You give me a lead and I'll give you a sale, you know?
Well, if you feel that confident that you can do that, that's great. So a lead is going to be more of a contact information where you're getting people's information so that you can then contact them or put them on your email list, or you have their information to get more information from them. A sale is going to be more specific to what the item is that you're trying to get them to do. So if I'm trying to sell an online product, I would definitely use sale, right? For your situation, you could use either. I mean, you're not actually selling your service online, you're selling a quote, right?
Right.
So you can sell a quote online to them, which ultimately isn't a sale, but it would look that way online. So that's fine.
So I would be doing, because I guess it's like website magic algorithms where they're right, that they're either sending people just to your website, or because, and then even like, well, how is website traffic different than brand consideration? Because if you get people on your website, aren't they considering your brand? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends. Like, there's other ways you can do it, right? So if you're creating a landing page that's really specific to your brand, then that's going to be more brand consideration, right? Whereas, so a lot of people who are doing, or oftentimes when people are doing ad campaigns like this, they're sending people to a landing page because what they want them to see is very specific, and maybe they don't have that specific page on their website. Obviously, if you sell a product and you can send them right to the sales page, then that's perfect. But
Right.
For a lot of things, that doesn't always work. So that's where you'd create those landing pages, which would be different than just sending them back to your website. So
Gotcha.
For you, sales or leads would work. The other thing you can do is you can set up conversions for your goals in the back end of your Google Analytics. And I touch on it briefly later, but if you set up your goal in your analytics, then your analytics is going to track your where your people are coming from on your ad, and they're going to look at that as a goal conversion on your website. So then they're going to tell you what percentage of goals you achieved from this ad. So ultimately, for you, it's going to be sales or lead. And you're going to be selling a quote. You're not going to be selling a product, right? Because you have to go there and look at what they need. It's not always the same thing, right? Whereas for someone selling, shampoo, it's going to be shampoo. This is how much it's going to be. This is what the size is. So that's going to be really sales specific. So does that answer your question? Does that help?
Yes, that totally answers my question.
Perfect. Good. I'm glad. Okay. So when you are going to do a search ad like this, the way they have it right now, and I assume they will keep it this way for a little while, is that you get 3 headlines with 30 characters each. The headline, if you look on the right-hand side, is the blue font in the ad that's showing in the example. So Ashley Ham Photography, Wedding Photographer, Family Photographer, Manitoba. Those are my 3 headlines. They're going to come up in the blue at the top. There's other things you can add to here if you want. Phone number, if that's something that you really want to push people to call you, then that's fine as well. You'll notice at the button there's a call, or at the bottom of the ad there's a call button. We'll talk about that as well, but you want to use as many of those characters as you can without putting random things in there that don't make sense, right? So you can think of this ahead of time when you go to put this ad up. You know there's going to be 3 headlines with 30 characters each. The description is going to be 2 descriptions with 90 characters each, so you can prep that ahead of time. Here, you really want to be talking about what you're offering to them, specific to what it is your ad is about. So this one is about wedding photography and family photography. So what I'm trying to sell in this ad is love and excitement, special moments. So I want to grab people's attention by the words that I'm using. There's probably better ways I can write this. Honestly, I kind of wrote it quickly, but ultimately I'm trying to sell an experience, even though I'm selling a product, a photography product. So you need to think about what's important to your end user when they're reading this, and what is going to resonate with them to make them want to click this. How do you want people to contact you? So at the button here, it has a call, but a little checkbox. Show a call button on your ad. So people are searching on mobile, they can just hit that call button and boom, it calls you. So if you want people to call you, then leave that on there. Make sure you have a number that people are answering. It's not going to like a voice service or something like that. Obviously you can't answer your phone all the time, but you want to make sure that you're answering as much as you can. Otherwise, if you don't want people to call you, take this off, because if people see that, they will call, right? If that's their way of communicating. For myself personally, I left it on here only because I took the screenshot before I took it off. But for me, I wouldn't leave this on for this ad specifically, because I would want people to go and look at my website and make sure in this situation that my style of photography suits their style of what they're looking for. Ultimately, I would only want to do work for someone who's seen the style of photos I take and that resonates with them. So in different situations, you may not have someone call. Whereas, Matt, if you're doing IT services and something comes up, you want someone to call you right away so that they can book that appointment or book that service or whatever it is. So that's very different. And Rita, for you, I don't know if it's best. I think for you, it's probably best to have people go through that quoting form, because that's really where you get all your information. And if you're on site, someone called you and they don't get you, then maybe they're going to call someone else, right? So in that situation, then I would take it off. So there are different types of ads. I probably should have actually put this down sooner, but we're looking at a search ad here. The other options for Google Ads, there's display ads. This is where it's like the image, so you can really see what's going on. They are also put in other places. Shopping ads, this is really product specific. Video, smart, and discovery ads. This isn't a Google Ads workshop, so we won't go into detail on those, but you guys can Google what those all are. Ultimately, a search ad is a really good place to start when you're kind of getting your toes wet with doing any Google advertising. Sorry, Alix, did anyone actually type that they have done Google advertising before? Or feel free to just turn your mic on if you have done Google advertising before.
No, I didn't see that, no.
Okay, no. Perfect. So the next step is to choose your key words. This is obviously really important. This is what people are searching for. What are people searching for? Man, it's like I have this memorized.
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
I typed it in the box. I don't know if you saw that, Alix.
I don't. Oh, sorry, I was like,
it's all good. I noticed that you had photographer twice in your. When I did a search ad, I was attempting to have every word be unique, so that maybe. Anyway, and is there a benefit to making those headlines be very unique, or is it just like, hey, this is my business?
So this is where you need to think of your keywords again. Obviously, that's what you're actually typing. But if, for me, for that specifically, photographer is going to be in that, or photo, or
Okay.
something like that. So that's really specific to that industry, because if someone's looking for a photographer, there's not really another word they're going to use. So that makes sense. It makes sense to have that word multiple times in mind. And you'll even notice in these keywords that that's in almost, it is, I think, in everything, right? Because if someone's searching, that's what they're searching for. However, if you have a business that people ultimately aren't searching for, then you need to think of keywords that they are, what else are they searching for that you might come up that would be relevant to what they're looking for. I'll try to think of an example, but we'll continue on. But ultimately, it's what your keywords are and what people are searching for that needs to be in that those headings and that description. I wrote it multiple times because that's what people are looking for when they're looking for that service.
Is there a limit to how many keywords you can use?
Yes. So on here, they recommend 7 to 10. I actually don't know if they let you go above 10. They probably don't, but we'll come to that as well here. When you are doing your search, your keywords, you really, really need to think about your ideal client. What are they searching for? This is often really hard for people because they get so, they're so used to what their industry terms are that they often will use their industry terms, which doesn't make sense for the end user. I use this example when Alix and I talked on Monday. In our first workshop, we talked about telecommunications and telecom. That is not a word I would ever search for. That's a very industry word, right? So you need to think of the words that people use when they are looking for your product or service. I'm looking for rural internet, or I'm looking for fixing my computer, or something like that. So it's really good to ask your clients, ask your friends, ask people that aren't in your industry, hey, if you were looking to get your trees removed, what would you Google? What would you search? Just literally ask them that. Because they're going to be the ones that really give you that outside view of what it is. You can also use location tagging. So a lot of people will do like, when they search, they'll write like wedding photographer near me. That's going to fit into the category of the location that you actually choose, which is, I think, the next slide that we're going to talk about. But you can also use the name of the city that you're in, or use the name of the province that you're in, or another place that you offer your product or service. So if you're a wedding photographer and you want to take pictures in Mexico because you want to do destination weddings, Mexico wedding photographer, that's probably like a massively used keyword because people probably really want, like, you also need to think of how many people are using these keywords, but anyways, we'll get into that too. So location tagging, if that makes sense for you. If you're in smaller communities, you're in, Carberry this, or Verdon this. So you can use that. Again, recommending 7 to 10 keywords here. Use the ones that fit best for you. Maybe you only have 8, that's fine. Maybe you have 7, that's fine. 10. Again, I don't know if they let you go over. I've never even tried to go over, but I would follow the recommendations. Google is the one that's doing this for you. Use the recommendations that they are setting. Any questions about keywords? No, everyone feels good? Awesome. Okay, so ad locations. So where do you want your ads to show up? So there's 2 different ways you can set this up. You can do it as a radius around your business, so you can pinpoint your business. Google generally picks up the address of where you are, and then you can change the radius size. Otherwise, you can set specific areas and again, set the size around them. Again, it feels like common sense, but even if you are in Brandon, maybe there are people in Verdon that use your services or products when they come into town. Maybe there are people in Gladstone. You can see here there's this is a 25-kilometer radius, which isn't huge, but I'm probably missing communities in the area that would fit to the clients of this specific ad. So I went through that quick, sorry. Any questions on location? No.
Does cost increase with geographic size?
Yeah, so the way it works is that the cost per bid will change right here as we get bigger in size, and obviously with the amount of people that are already using those keyword terms. So yes, it does affect your search range or your price range a little bit. We're not in a super highly populated area. We're also not in an area where people are really aggressively using Google Ads yet. So our dollar spend on Google Ads for this area, if you are specifically looking at this area, is going to be a lot less than if you're like in Toronto or Vancouver or something like that, because those places are a lot more concentrated and there's a lot more people that are using this functionality. Even Winnipeg is going to be more concentrated. So to be honest, this is actually really good for people in this area right now because it's not used as much. Some people are using it, of course. It's not that it's not being used, but it's not as popular as, say, like Facebook advertising or something like that. That's really easy for people. They tend to get a little bit overwhelmed by this process and don't really know how it works. So people avoid it a little bit, which makes it really good for people who are using it because they can get a little bit more value out of it. So. Okay, selecting a budget. So Google Ads for the search ad will give you two options. I put both of them here in pictures so you can see. Select your budget based on a scale, so you can just slide the scale to pick whatever you like. I actually think you can type in, now that I say that, I think you can type in your dollar average, but we'll talk about that. And then the bottom one is going to be their suggested. So they're always going to give you a range of what your typical competitor is spending. Now, as we're looking at this, keep in mind, this is specific to a wedding photographer in Brandon. Your business may be different, your keywords may be different, your location may be different. So these dollar amounts may be different based on what it is that you put into these parameters. You can go this far and look at how much your average competitor is spending and get an idea of what the cost would be. So by all means, go this far. And Rita, I know you've looked into it. Have you gone this far in yours to actually see what those dollar amounts are?
I literally just ate my last McNugget and you called on me.
Sorry. Typical server in me from years past. I always wait till people take a big bite.
I did a bunch of Google maybe last year and the year before. And so I think I got this far, but I don't know that anyone else was advertising at that point. When we opened 8 years ago, no one else even had a website. Right. And I was like, it's 2012, starting a business. I will make a website. And so I don't know what it would be now, but now that you're walking us through this, I'm thinking I might throw a bit of money at this. So it'll be interesting.
It doesn't hurt to check, right? Like even if you do get this far and you're like, ooh, I'm not really willing to go that high with it or whatever, at least you can see what the average is for what it is that your parameters are. Okay, so again, let's see so how much do you want to spend versus how much your competitors are spending? Ultimately, it's a bidding war, right? So the person who's bidding the highest amount per day is going to be ranked higher on Google. That being said, you're only paying for what people are clicking on, right? So if I went in and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go with $8 a day. Some days people might only spend $5. Some days people might not spend anything. Maybe people aren't searching for a wedding photographer in January. However, if they do go to $8 a day and they go to $8 a day for the whole month, then I'm looking at $243 for that month. It does give you an estimated click rate for that. So from that, you can determine what the actual click rate is, right? So it's going to give you an average there. Mine's 90 to 160, which feels like a huge range for that small of number, but I can figure out an approximate click rate for my ads. At the end of the month, I could figure out what the actual click rate is. So it's really what you're looking to spend and how much you want to get out of it. This is also where you want to keep track. Actually, we'll just talk about tracking later because we're going to talk about tracking later. So quick tip, people often ask me, how much should I spend? Well, that depends on how much you make. So an average small business, this is average for any small business I want to say in the world, North America at least. 6 to 8% of your gross revenue is the average of what small business should be spending on marketing as a whole. I'm not saying this is what you need to spend. I'm not saying you need to spend this much or this little. I'm just giving you an average range of this is how much companies on average spend for marketing. This is going to include things like anything you're doing in the newspaper. This is going to include your brochures. This is going to include all that kind of stuff as well. So take that number into consideration. This is going to be a small piece of it, right? So, well, it could be a big piece of it if that's the only thing you're doing, I guess. Again, if you are new in business, you want to be spending a little bit more. If you feel like you're pretty established, you can bring this down. But on average, just so everyone has an idea, that's generally where the marketing budget sits for small business. The bigger you get, the bigger you want to go with your budget. Again, you don't need to spend this. This is just information. Any questions about budgets? What do you guys think? Any good? Feeling good? Perfect. Review and go. Google will prompt you to review your ad, make sure everything is right, make sure you've got all your spelling correct. Didn't even look at that. Hopefully mine was all correct. I didn't post that ad, so it's all good. You need to submit your payment details. They're going to bill you after, right? So keep in mind, you're not paying up front for this. So if you start running it and you're like, you know, this just really isn't working for me, you can go in and stop it. You can also go in and make changes, right? I say done. Obviously your ad is done and you posted it, but this isn't the end. You want to be tracking, right? So you don't want to just be throwing hundreds of dollars out there on Google Ads and not actually looking at where your return is coming from. So once it starts going, even though your ad is done, you want to be checking your analytics. You want to be checking what your click rates are and how much you're actually spending. So you can monitor that and see if it's worthwhile to be advertising that way. Yay. Any questions about Google Ads? Does everyone feel good about that? Have a bit of an understanding? There's obviously a lot of different options with Google Ads, but this is a really easy way to get started, and it's a really easy way to kind of go through it and see how much you would need to spend to be in the range of what someone's looking for. Good, good, perfect. Okay, so let's look at comments and feedback. So people love to leave comments and feedback online. Everyone loves to hide behind their keyboard and type things, both positive and negative. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts when it comes to comments and feedback online. Generally, what you're doing when you're dealing with negative comments is you are dealing with upset customers or trolls. I'm sure everyone's heard of that troll term. This is basically people who thrive off of negative comments and feedback behind their keyboard. They're often hard to please, or they're looking for something in return. Just information for you guys. Okay, so these are things you want to be doing. You do want to respond in a timely manner to especially negative feedback, but positive as well. Timely manner, when I say that, I like to suggest within 24 hours. If your business is really prominently online, then I would take that window shorter. If you are not online as much, then it's okay to go a little bit longer, but I really don't suggest going much longer than that. I know it's sometimes hard to do, but best to get those people while they're hot. You want to respond online and then take the conversation offline. By offline, I mean like through email or through DM or a phone call or something like that. The reason you want to respond online, you want to respond on the same platform that the person put the comment on. So if you post a picture, you're a restaurant, you post a picture and it's a burger and fries, and someone comments and says, last time I was there, I had cold fries. You want to respond to their comment saying, oh, so sorry, we hate when that happens. Shoot us a DM, let's talk about it, or I want more information, or whatever it may be. The reason why you want to respond directly on that comment is because other people are going to see that negative comment. And if they see that you've responded to it, then it shows that you are engaged, you care about what your clients or customers are talking about. even though you're moving it offline, that initial response should be on the same platform that it was given. This goes with Google reviews, all those other platforms as well. If there isn't a way to respond online, then you obviously want to contact them in some kind of way. You want to personalize your message. So, hey, Susan, sorry to hear that, or whatever. Talk about what they complained about. Sorry to hear that your fries were cold. We hate when that happens, whatever it may be. And you always want to monitor your comments. This often happens. People don't realize they have reviews on Google or something that they don't look at often. And 6 months later, they're like, oh, shoot, someone put a bad comment about us on Google. I should probably look into that. In those cases, absolutely, you can respond back and say, so sorry, we didn't see this, whatever the response may be. But I mean, if it's longer than a year, maybe you don't want to bring up that bad stuff. Anyways, monitor your comments, most important. Okay, a couple of don'ts here for you. You don't want to lose your cool. The last thing you want to do is respond when you're upset or mad about the comment that they left. So obviously you want to be responding in a timely manner, but if you need to step away for a minute and just take a breath before you respond, then please do that. You also don't want to delete comments, even if they are negative comments. This is just going to make people more mad, the people who left the negative comments in the first place. You want to respond to them and you want to deal with it. There are, of course, always exceptions to this. If people are using like profanity, or there are other situations that come up where it does make sense to delete them. However, generally speaking, you want to leave those, even if they are negative, and respond back to them. Was there a question there, Alex? I seen something come up. Just gonna jump on you.
I've heard don't feed the trolls, but it sounds like it's better to invite them to tea in the DMs. Would you agree? Or silence is better response on Twitter rather than, say, a good Google review?
Yeah, and Twitter, I feel like, is a different animal because it's such a fast environment. I think that there are ways to respond, and if you recognize that there is a troll on there, I wouldn't maybe give them you can give them the option to DM you, totally. I would respond in a way of, so that people, when they see it, they see that you've responded, but I wouldn't play into what it is that they're talking about. I would agree with that. It really depends on the situation. To be honest, like, and this is ridiculous, but unfortunately true, there are companies that I've worked with a lot of different companies in Brandon, specifically with social or online stuff. And I have unfortunately seen the same names come up on multiple people's accounts, the same people complaining about things, the same people looking for a discount or looking for a deal, because they're just those people that complain. So there are those people. I'm not saying that there aren't, for sure, but generally speaking, it's the ones that, it's the customers that are leaving bad reviews that you want to, that are actually your customers or potentially could be customers for you. Oftentimes people just want to vent too, and they don't really want something. So they will leave a negative comment. You'll respond to them, telling them to DM. I guess that's the other thing too I meant to mention. Give the DM option to them. So we'd love to hear from you and resolve this. Shoot us a DM so we can get more information. I wouldn't go go after them trying to get more information. If they want to talk more, they will. And if they want something from you, they will come and get it. Give them that option and allow them to come back to you. I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to, email them or get a hold of them offline if they're not even looking for that. Did another comment come up there?
No, but I do see a lot of funny, like big corporations going back at trolls. Funny responses. Like you see a lot of those like big mega chain fast food restaurants or whatever it is, and they
totally
do have witty comebacks for those trolls.
Good comebacks too, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's completely fine. Recognize the situation and then respond appropriately in those situations. This is also where you need to keep in mind the voice of your business, right? So maybe this works for like for Rita or for my tea source or something like that, where it's witty, clever, but it's not anything too, it's not bad, right? Whereas I maybe wouldn't suggest that for me and Haddad, because that's a different audience. Again, depending on the situation, there could possibly be a situation where they could do that. So keep in mind the voice of your business and who else is going to be reading that. So who's your clientele that's going to actually see those comments back? In the case of Wendy's, I know they've had some really funny ones. I should have actually screenshotted some. Good for them. Like people, their audience loves that. So that makes sense completely for them. Hopefully that answers that question. If there's more questions about it, feel free to ask. The other thing you don't want to do is give the same generic response, because people see that you give the same generic response and it just fuels the fire. They're like, you don't care. You have a robot responding to me or whatever it is. You want to make sure to personalize it and really respond to what it is they're saying. You also don't want to forget about the positive comments. People who leave positive comments, like generally speaking, when someone leaves feedback, it's because something bad happened to them, right? But there are those people that leave positive comments, which is fantastic. Maybe you've asked them to, maybe you didn't ask them to and they left it, but responding to them encourages people to leave more positive comments. It also encourages them to continue working with you or buying from you or whatever it may be. It shows that you appreciate their positive feedback. So again, I mean, if you can get them in 24 hours, awesome. If you can't, that's totally fine. Just try to respond to them in the end. Okay, quick tips when replying to, so generally speaking, this, I should have actually had this tick up so that it didn't show it to it all, whatever. I highly recommend that you have a plan in place when you are responding to comments online. These are the 5 steps we take. These are the 6 steps we take, whatever the amount of steps are. And everyone in your business should know what they are so that it's always responded to the same way. Does anyone have guidelines that they use for their business currently when responding to anything online? I see Matt shaking his head no. If you do, just pop a yes in the chat, and Alix can watch me or be my my assistant here.
We do have a no. We do have a no on there. Yeah.
Okay. And I find a lot of people don't. But it's super simple to make 5 steps or whatever they are. Anyways, these are the ones that I recommend for people. Again, these can be adjusted based on your business. So these 5 steps. 1, you want to respond within 24 hours. 2, you're applying to the original comment. These are all things we just discussed. Obviously, if there's not the ability to do that, then do your best. You want to acknowledge the problem. Sorry about your cold fries. Sympathize. We hate when that happens too. Humanize your response. If there's multiple people in your company that respond to DMs or respond to Facebook or whatever, sign it with your name. It doesn't need to be your full name, last name, or your initials or something like that, so that when someone calls and they say, hey, Matt told me to call and talk to him about this or whatever it is, or hey, it's Matt, or hey, whatever it is. Again, this fits to your business. If this doesn't work for your business, that's totally fine. This works really well. We have a couple of companies we work with that are fairly big, and they have a team that responds to comments. So, you know, Susan might not know what Tom said in a response to a comment, but he'll write Tom. So when they email or they call or whatever, that information, they have that information. So they feel a little bit more comfortable that they're not just like, hey, someone told me to call you. And then the person who answers is like, who told you to? What's, you know, it just makes it confusing. Anyways, if it's just you, that's fine. Again, then take the conversation offline. Another quick note on this. Some companies I work with, they like to have it sort of tied up within a certain time frame as well. So whether it's like 48 hours or 72 hours or whatever it is, the resolution needs to be provided within that time frame so that they know it's done and it's completed and they don't have to worry about it anymore. There's also been situations where we've worked with companies that they don't actually apologize for what it was, because apologizing gives them the responsibility that they did something wrong, or basically they're saying we did something wrong, whereas the situation they may not have done something wrong. Again, these are really specific circumstances with certain companies. That's more of like a legal concern for them, that if they say sorry about this, then they felt they were taking the responsibility for it. So instead they would respond in kind of a different way, or apologize for the situation. Oh, we're so sorry this situation came up, or something like that. So if there are situations where these specific items need to be put into your list, then put them in there if it makes sense for your business. Any questions about that? Does that make sense to everyone? Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah. Rita just has a comment that we have one negative situation a year, and we are always super surprised and respond like the house is on fire.
Yes.
Yes. And then Matt, you put a comment, US versus Canada law. What did you mean by that? Just so everyone's on the
The
same.
US, if you admit guilt, it can be taken as a assumption of guilt or a
Yeah.
claim to, and there's specific law in Canada, because we say sorry all the time. You say sorry, it's not something that you're actually liable for.
Yeah.
That's kind of
The apology thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the business that we worked with that had that situation, they knew of that, obviously, because they work in multiple different areas. So if there are things specific to your industry, again, there's nothing really else that and that's why I mentioned it, there's nothing really else that we've come across that has been really, that falls into like a legal situation with this. It's mostly just trying to give that person the opportunity to tell you what happened, which is often only what they want to do. If they are a genuine customer that had a bad experience, often they just want the business to know so that they can fix it, right? And they were upset at the time, and maybe it's past now, or maybe it hasn't, right? So giving them the opportunity to tell you about it and being sympathetic to what the situation was often makes it better, without having to offer them a discount or something like that. Again, keep in mind, there are people locally, unfortunately, that I have seen the same name come up on multiple platforms that are looking for something. In those situations, it's totally the call of the business if they want to be offering something to keep people quiet, or whatever you want to call it. It's a really case-by-case situation. So if you have guidelines in place as to how you deal with it, then that's how you deal with it. So I actually took a screenshot, and I should have put it up here, where a business owner responded and signed it, like, obviously your situation, Frank Arndt, business like owner or whatever, right? So it's just making sure that when those situations need to be addressed, that they are addressed correctly. So good. Any other questions? Everyone feels good? Everyone just put some guidelines in place for their business. Yay, starting today. Okay, so let's get into the actual review. I don't know what time it is because I turned my phone over. Okay, we're 1 hour in. Does anyone need should we maybe take just a 5-minute break? And then if people want to grab a water or a drink or a bathroom break, or do we feel good? What do you think? Alexa?
I'll wait for someone to say something.
Okay. Surprisingly, I'm okay. I've only finished like 80% of my water, but
I think we're safe to continue on. People are, I think, moving about their day anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Okay. Social engagement review. So in the first workshop, we looked at creating organic awareness campaigns, or really any other campaigns, but the focus of that workshop was really awareness campaigns. So this is going to be information that we're looking at when you're reviewing your analytics and other information that's coming back from those sorts of campaigns. So how and what do you track when you're doing regular everyday posting on social or other platforms? How? First one. So third-party platforms, scheduling platforms have really good analytics of what to be, of how to get that information. I say Hootsuite here. I know that I've talked about that quite a bit. That's because that's the platform we use, and it works really well for us. There are many other platforms that you can use that are great as well. and they'll have analytics information for you. Planoly is another really popular one that is used for Instagram specifically, and they have great tracking information on there as well. You can also track directly within these social channels. Obviously, it's a little bit more work because you have to go to each one individually and get that. But the option is there, and that's great. Let's just keep in mind that if you are using those individual tracking within those channels, that there is a limited time frame for it. So on Facebook, you have 28 days that you can go back and get the detailed analytics. You can go back later and get the actual post analytics, but the big stuff is 28 days. As well as Instagram, your big analytics is going to be for a week. And again, you can go back on individual posts and get further information, but it makes it a lot more challenging to get that information and a lot more time consuming. So if you are grabbing that information, keep those timeframes in mind, or if you're using those the platforms directly. The other place you want to be looking at is your website analytics. I push, obviously, Google Analytics. We've talked about it a few times. There are other analytics platforms. Adobe has an analytics platform. I know that Squarespace has an analytics platform within theirs specifically. Google works really well for us because we run Google Ads and we are using these other platforms. We're using Google My Business, so they all come together. Is anyone else using a different platform for website analytics? If you are, just write the name of it in your chat or in the chat. Otherwise, if you are using Google Analytics, maybe just write Google Analytics in the chat, and Elise can let me know where we're sitting at for analytics tracking. We are going to look at some actual screenshots from Google Analytics. So if you have it and are looking at it, then those will be ones that we recommend looking at. Any feedback there, Elise?
Just no, just a note that they use Constant Contact. Noted that, yeah, which we use as well here.
Yes, and I use Constant Contact as well. I should actually look. I have a affiliate discount. So if anyone is using it, side note, if anyone is using it, I may be able to get you a discount on it. If you are not using it, but you are interested, then I can definitely get you a discount. So feel free to reach out to me after this if you are interested in that, and I can have a look and see. I don't remember what the rate is exactly, but anyways, I quite like Constant Contact too. So, oh, we missed the first one. Okay, so what do we want to be tracking? We want to be tracking our reach. So this is our audience growth rate. So this isn't how big your audience is in total. This is how much you're growing. So people often get caught up and they're like, I only have 500 followers and someone else has 1,000, or I only have whatever amount of followers. The amount of followers that you have, as long as they're engaged, that's really what matters. But you do want to be growing your audience because you want to be bringing new people into your audience all the time. So tracking how much your audience is growing we track month to month. And that's generally what I recommend. So how many people did you grow last month? Does anyone actually have any idea how much they grew last month on their social platforms? If you have an idea, let me know let Elise know in the chat.
We actually just calculated ours, but it was over the past quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you guys track yours generally by quarter, Elise? Or do
Yeah. I sometimes if something amazing happened, I let them know. But yeah, no.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to report on yours, so this is maybe a special circumstance where you are required to track it.
I geek out on it. I like the insights.
Yeah.
Good. Especially over the past couple months, because everyone seems to be so much more engaged on social media and digitally. Right? So. Yeah.
And people often see their numbers going up, but they don't actually know how much it's going up. So that's something to keep in mind. The next thing you want to be tracking is your average engagement. So this is your engagement based on how many followers you have. So obviously someone's engagement with a way bigger following, or someone's small engagement with a way bigger following isn't going to be as good, right? So if you have a small following, but you have a big engagement, that's better than having a huge following and not having as many people engage with your content. So that's something we look at as well. Acquisition and click-through rate, impressions from social media. This is something that's good to keep in mind when you're doing organic posting. It's not something that needs to be monitored quite as in depth as when you're doing ads, and you'll see that coming up. But it's still something you want to be looking at, right? How many people are going through your social media back to your website? And then of course, conversion. If anyone's actually converting, making a product or booking a service. Again, these aren't big things I would be worried about as much when you are, when you're doing organic content. You're trying to educate and inspire and engage these people. You're not trying to sell them as much. I do like to leave it on there though, and you'll see when we do the actual ads that this is what we're, those are obviously the ones that are most important when we're looking at ads. Okay, so what's some additional things that you could be looking at? Those are the ones I recommend to monitor on a regular basis. This is additional. So if you have a few minutes and you're the business owner and you're laying in bed at night, these are some things you can look at. You can track them too, that would be great. But often people are like, I don't have time to even track the other ones. So this additional is even more. Okay, so website click-throughs on social. So all of your social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, if you're using that, you're really advanced. Then all those platforms have a profile. And within that profile, you should have your website, or you should have a click-through page, whether it's going to Linktree or whatever it is. So monitoring how many people are actually clicking through that portal is another number you can look at. This is more prominent too for Instagram, because Instagram doesn't allow links in their captions. So if you want someone to click through, they have to go back to your profile to actually click that link. You want to be looking at your profile view specifically on Instagram. So I grabbed a screenshot here. So this is a post insight from one post specifically. I'm sure everyone has seen this before. Obviously, the top part is the amount of likes. Comments is the next one. Shares is the paper airplane. And then the furthest one to the right is the saves. That's also really good for your engagement if people are saving your posts. And then I circled the profile visits. So these people are obviously interested in what was posted, and they want some more information. So they went back to the profile to have a look at who is this person or who is this business and what do they have to offer. So that's a really good number to keep in mind as well as something additional specifically on that platform. Recommendations and reviews. So a lot of sites will have people can recommend you or write reviews about you. Again, this is something that we want to keep on top of. Bounce rate. So now this is talking more about your analytics on your actual website. Something additional is going to be bounce rate. These are people that are coming to your website and then leaving quickly. So why did they come to your website and leave so quickly? What did they not find what they were looking for? This really ties back to me continually saying, make sure your content matches what you're linking people back to, because if you send them back to your website and then they leave, they didn't find what they were looking for, so they left, and then you lost their attention. So keeping that bounce rate in mind. Every industry is going to have a different rate. You're going to see from the example that I'm showing later on, the bounce rate is actually quite high. However, the conversion rate is also quite high, so it sort of balances. Referrals on website analytics. So again, this is on your website analytics, your Google Analytics or whatever it is that you're using. If someone is coming from another website to your website, it's going to track it under the referrals. So this is really good. If I go on my website and I'm like, oh, my referrals are really high this month, where are they coming from? I can dig deeper into that and I can see, oh, they're coming from the Chamber of Commerce website, or, oh, they're coming from BDNMB because I posted an article there and linked it back. Oh, they're coming from, wherever else it was. So if you do have people that are coming from these referral sites, you want to make sure that the content on those other people's sites matches to what is relevant to your information. So the chamber, for example, I want to make sure that my name is right and my contact information and my email and my description is there. If people are looking at it and clicking back, then they're ultimately reading that information first. Also, the more referrals you're getting from your website, to your website rather, the higher you're going to rank on Google organically. So you want people to be pushing back from their site to yours. This will help to increase that, that Google ranking. Oh, I thought I had more. Okay, that's it. Any questions about those additionals? Hopefully not too overwhelming. So paid ad review. So this is going to be talking about our funnel that we did. So this will actually look in at the specific example I gave, so that we can sort of see how it works, and we'll go from there. So McCollum Roofing was the example we did. Oh shoot, I forgot to change the year. It was actually summer 2019, but I never know what year it is, so don't mind that. Doesn't really matter. We had taken some screenshots from it and gave them to the client, but unfortunately this is the only one I could find from Facebook specifically from additional info. So anyways, just a couple of a little bit of information here that mobile marketplace was huge for this campaign. Newsfeed on mobile was really good. Instagram a little bit, and newsfeed on desktop computers, which is crazy how low that is, right? So making sure this is really good information to look at when you guys are placing ads. If people are, everyone's looking on their mobile device, then really making sure that that ad is mobile friendly, because it's going to appear a little bit different on a mobile device versus on a computer. Facebook will show you both of those, so just make sure you look at it. Generally, there's less content written. So on desktop, you might get like 2 lines or whatever it is. On mobile, it's going to be less. So making sure that whatever that first part of your content really speaks to what the audience is looking for. So how? Oh, these are the same, because you can track them the same way. So that's great. Makes it a lot easier. So when you're tracking your ads, again, you can track them through third-party platforms, directly on your social channels, and through your website analytics. What are you tracking? Again, you're tracking the same things. These are your most important. Your audience growth rate. This is going to be, hopefully, a lot larger when you place ads. Your growth from placing ads often, well, it'd be awesome if your organic was as high as your ads, but oftentimes it's going to be a lot higher. So how many new followers did you gain from this? Really important to take note of. What's your average engagement based on your overall followers? If your followers are growing, is your engagement growing? Because that's really important. You don't want to add more followers that aren't really engaged with your content. This is where you may see a difference in engagement if maybe you do a giveaway. It's really popular for people to give away things like tickets to something, or like a community event thing. And that's great as long as it suits your audience, right? So if so say a wedding photographer gave away, I don't know, I can't think of anything really random, but if it doesn't suit my audience, then my engagement's not going to go up. My audience will probably go up for a little bit until people realize, oh, I don't actually want to follow her, and then they'll unfollow me. But if it suits your audience and it makes sense for your business, then people will actually be engaged. Again, your acquisition, this is going to be a lot more important now that you're actually doing ads. So what's your click-through rate on these, and what's your impressions from social media? The money that you're spending there versus how much you're getting back. And conversion, did people actually make a purchase or book a service with you? That's what you wanted them to do if that's what the ad's about. So those are ones you want to be tracking the most when you're tracking these kind of campaigns. So here's some Google Analytics. These ones are actually from McCollum Roofing. I share some, I don't share all of them, just client confidentiality, but just so you guys can see. These numbers are going to be very different based on your business and how many followers you have and how much engagement you have and what products and services you're selling. this is a brand new business that we're looking at here, and these numbers were really good for them. Maybe 300 users on your website is low, then you need to understand what your averages are and what your numbers are compared to what you normally see. So you can see here, the first recommendation that I look at, or that I recommend that you look at, is your audience overview. So how many people in general are looking at your site? How many of them are new and how many of them are return? So you can see here the little pie graph. It's showing that 89% of those visitors between this time frame, the time frame is June 1st to August 31st. That's the time we ran the campaign. We did run a little bit into September, but generally speaking, that was the bulk of it. You can see a lot of ups and downs, obviously peaks in the website views. Totally normal. That's when we're throwing content out there, so that makes sense. We had obviously a lot of new visitors during that time, great. A few return visitors. If you actually hover over these, if you guys are looking at your Google Analytics, if you hover over your these pie charts, it gives you the actual numbers, so you can actually see what the numbers were. You can see my mouse was like sitting on Sunday, June 9th. There was only 2 users. You can see the little like the window popped up there. But if you mouse over things, you can see everything, rather more detail. So the next thing that I recommend looking at is your acquisition. Where are people coming from? If you're running a social campaign specifically, then that's what you want to look at, your social acquisition. So here, we ran this campaign primarily on Facebook. So you can see in the chart at the bottom, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, those are the 3 platforms that this client used. However, the ads were done on Facebook, which you can see the numbers are quite different. So there were 90 users in total that had visited the website from Facebook during that time, and 89 of them were new. So someone was a repeat on that. You can obviously see the peaks again. And you can see that the bounce rate is actually quite high. Instagram was 80% and 74 for Facebook, 40 for Twitter. Some people came from Twitter and they hung out on the page for a long time, like 2 minutes and 80 seconds, or rather 21 seconds. The average is high. Anyways, that's great. Those Twitter people, they love more information. At the end of this graph, you can see goal conversion rate. So this is where you can add in those goals that we had talked about in your Google ads. So if you put a goal into your analytics, then it'll track it for you, so you can actually see where these people are coming from and if they're actually converting on the goals that you have set. We didn't set up goals in this situation, so it didn't matter. We can still track it. You can still track it both ways, but that's just an extra analytics piece that you can add there if that's something that makes sense to, or you want to have in there. Was there a question that came up, Alex? I thought I seen something pop up.
Can you determine the mean, median, and mode? That could be one person from their device could not. Sorry, Matt.
AFK, they could be away from their keyboard. Like one person could have gone AFK and then been on that for like 2 hours. Is there a way to like get a little bit more granularity in that data?
Totally. You mean with the length of time? Are you talking bounce rate specifically?
Length of time specifically. Like you say, you have a bunch from Twitter and they're staying for a long time for some reason. Why? Yeah. Just want to get in. Why is that? Is that because 2 people were really interested and read for 3 hours, or what is that?
Yeah. Who was on this site for that long? That's ridiculous. Okay, so there's a couple things you can do here. You can actually look at, so you can drill down and see the path that people took. So I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but you can actually see, so where people came from, what they looked at, and then where they went from there, and it'll actually map it for you. It's kind of crazy. And you can see which pages they spent the most time on. So if they, and I would assume that likely what happened is they did go to something and they probably sat there for a long time because they stepped away from their computer. generally speaking, most people on their phones have a sleep mode. So they'll only stay on the site. It'll only show they're on the site for a certain length of time. So even if likely what happened is they were maybe on a desktop and they didn't have a sleep mode set up for it, or maybe they had taken it off their phone. But I would go back. I mean, in this case, it's only 5 people. And obviously there was like a huge, I mean, that's not that long, but you can go back and see, you can see if they were looking at a mobile device or a desktop device, and you can look at where they were looking from as well. So, I mean, not their address, that's obviously creepy, and you probably know a little bit more about this, but you can get pretty detailed information about whereabouts they are, so that if they have more information, and maybe they went to the contact page and wanted to fill in information or something like that. So you can definitely get a lot more information. On this site specifically, we didn't have any pages with huge amounts of content. So likely they just were on there and then put their phone down or walked away from their computer. But if you have pages that have, maybe you have a blog post on it and there's a fair bit of detail, someone might have spent more time reading it, right? I know on our site, specifically the business site, we have blog posts on there, and it actually says the amount of time it should take to read the article. So if it's like a 5-minute read, obviously if someone reads the whole thing, they may stay there longer. So you can drill down and see what pages they're on, which may help to understand that bounce rate a little bit better. Ultimately, it's that main page, which you can go, well, actually the next screen you'll see how many people come to your homepage. If someone comes to your homepage and then leaves, or someone goes to a page that you have set specifically for like for an ad to go to or for a social to go to, and people are bouncing from that page, then that's something you want to look into. And actually, I do talk about a really specific situation coming up in the tips where we did run into a situation like that and kind of how we resolved it. So yeah, does that answer your question? Does that help? Perfect. Okay. So yes, this is basically the information for the acquisition. I have this again set on social specifically, but this is also where you can go acquisition and referrals and look at those referral pages. So if you dig deeper into the referrals, it's really only the second page of referrals. It gives you where it says on this graph, it says Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It'll actually list the website. So it'll say like Brandon Chamber of Commerce / blah, 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 / whatever. You can actually click on it. So if you see one on there and you're like, I don't even know what this is. How did someone get from my website to this website? You can click on it. It'll take you right to that website. And you can see, oh, someone was referring me on their website. I didn't even know, or whatever it is. Reach out to them. Hey, thanks so much for putting this on my website, or putting this on your website, or whatever it may be, right? This is really common nowadays, especially where people are blogging a lot. They're talking about a lot of other businesses. Honestly, this is actually how we found our wedding photographer when we got married in Costa Rica. Someone wrote a blog post about their wedding photographer. I Googled wedding photographer Costa Rica and found this blog post, read it, looked back at went back to the photographer's site, and that's actually how we found them. So people are referring a lot more now than they used to, and ultimately that's what you want people to do, right? Like that blog post came up so high in the ranking because so many people had looked at it, and they had so much other content on their site that people were reading. So if people are doing that, you want to really like thank them, encourage them, whatever it may be. This is also where if you are blog posting, this is just side note information. If you are writing blog posts, encourage people to use your content and link it back to your site. So they can put your content on their site, give you credit for it, or give a little bit, like maybe give the first paragraph and say, read more on this on so-and-so's website, click here, right? So basically you're doing the work for them. You're writing that content, but then they're sharing it back to your site. So people are going back from their site to yours. And it's also giving you more authority, right? So someone is giving you, saying these are the best, this is who we use, or these are the best people, or whatever it may be, and sharing that information. So those referrals are really huge. Any other information about acquisition tracking? No, good, perfect. Okay, so the next one I like to go into, this is really where you find the details of what you're trying to accomplish, is in the behavior overview. Again, you can drill down into more detailed information, but this is ultimately the overview of the detailed information. So at the bottom, under the pages, you can see number one, this is the most visited page on that website, is the slash. That's the home page. We don't call it home, that's why it doesn't say home there, but if you're not sure what that page is on your, again, you can click on that little slash or whatever that word is and see. So the most page views on this website was the home page. Makes sense. We sent people back to the home page. The reason we sent people back to the homepage, I know I've been telling you guys don't send people back to your homepage, is because we wanted people to get more information. And on our homepage, above the scroll, I don't know if you guys have heard this. So in traditional advertising, when you used to advertise, people still do, when you advertise in a newspaper, the most expensive ads in a newspaper were placed above the fold. So this is where your newspaper folded in half, right? And it laid down. So if you got an advertisement that was above the fold, it was always more expensive because the paper sat open on your desk, sometimes upside down, but generally speaking, it was always that way. So in online, they call it above the scroll. So it's that first view that you see, that's where all your information should be. On this website specifically, the first thing that we had there was a big button that said request a quote. So that was our call to action, or request a free quote, I think it was. Anyways, they would talk about free and quoting. Anyways, that was our call to action, but we wanted people to be able to see the information on the site of what it was that was offered, so that they could look at, the projects, or look at whatever else they wanted to look at on the site. So we sent people back there because there was a big call to action immediately. That said, our goal was actually to send people to the contact page, which is what connected to that request a quote. However, people went to the projects page first, which is great. That's totally fine. And it actually makes sense. People wanted to see what they offered and if it made sense for what they were looking for before they went to that request a quote immediately. So this is where, if you are talking about your pain points, maybe you talked about a pain point and it resonated with someone, but it wasn't specific to what they needed. So we talked about, I don't know if you remember, skylights, right? So they're like, oh yeah, I don't actually have a skylight, but this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. I do need my roof done. They go back to the website, they kind of look around, go to the projects page and see, oh, perfect. They do flat roofs. That's what we have. Or they do whatever. That's what we have. So you can see that in this time frame, same time frame again that I've shown for all these pages, June 1st to August 31st, there were 446 page views on the homepage. Keep in mind, these are page views. Some of them are going to be repeats, right? You can drill down and get that information, but ultimately this is just the overview. From there, 133 of those people went to look at projects. That's great. I mean, percentage-wise, it's not huge, but that's still a big number. So from that, where we wanted people to actually go was to the contacts page. So of those 446 people that went back to the website, 108 of them went back to that contact page. So those are the people that ultimately wanted to or were thinking about contacting this business. Again, keeping in mind these numbers are going to be different for every business that happens. Maybe 108 people isn't very many for your business. Maybe 108 is huge for your business. 108 potential quotes for roofs is huge, right? Over a summer, that's a lot. So further to this, I don't have tracking information on this just because of client confidentiality, but I can tell you further what we tracked. Obviously, people looking at that page is great, but we actually want people to fill out the contact info and hit that submit button because we want people to actually request a quote. So that's the next level. The next level was how many people actually submit a quote request or a contact. So we tracked that number. We tracked it from the website as well as from social media, because some people do like to just send you a DM and say, hey, I need my roof done. Are you able to do this? So we track those numbers as well. And then further to that, the final stage of it is we tracked how many people actually got their roof done or got a repair done. So that actual final conversion, what was actually sold. So those numbers of the actual projects, and every project's different, right? Like in this situation, not all roofs cost the same. And for you guys, maybe not all your services cost the same. Some businesses do, right? They sell a product and it costs this much and it comes in this size of bottle and that's how much it is. So the conversion for this one was quite simple. We took all those people, we added up what their actual, the acquisition was on those products that they, or the services that they actually booked. Some people booked repairs, some people booked new roofs, some people booked, had bigger houses than others. But ultimately speaking, we knew what the value was of all of those items. We took it and we added it all together and we divided it by the amount that we spent on the advertising. In this situation, it's a little bit different because they hired us to do the advertising for them. So in this situation, we also included our fees for what they paid for us to do this service for them, right? That still counts against their advertising marketing. So in a situation for you guys, if you're just doing the advertising yourself, then you would just take that dollar amount spent versus the actual amount that you took in. And that would be your ultimate conversion of what your return on investment would be. Does that make sense? I feel like it makes perfect sense, right? Does anyone have questions? Rita, I see you laughing at me. Come on, it's right, it's easy.
I have a weird question that
Yeah,
have an actual
way.
answer. So I have a complicated kind of situation where we don't actually own the domain to one of our web portals.
Okay, it's for the telecom service.
It's actually for purchasing computers. So there's a web
okay.
store that's actually that we can take orders from, but it's hosted by this company called Millennium Micro.
Okay.
They're kind of like not a parent company of us, but more like a union of small businesses across Canada, right? So we direct traffic, or I create to this specific item. I've got a particular laptop I'm trying to promote, whatever. You know, the traffic will go there, but it's not going to reflect in my analytics because it's not actually on my website. Is there a way to track that? How do I do that? Or do you have any advice around dealing with that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So are they able to track it for you? Oftentimes when you use third-party companies like that, they will offer some analytics around the product that they provide for you. So if they're able to provide you with some kind of analytics, I would just ask them. They often, so this is a similar situation so remember in the last workshop, I showed you guys the Can Do Rail Services ad that we did for the one-off advertising that was for recruitment. So they use a third-party platform for their recruitment. So same thing, we send people back to the website, but then they go to this like other page that they don't have, I mean, they have control of, but not really, right? So we just asked the company if they could send us any kind of analytics tracking on it. In this situation, it worked out really well and they just gave us access to it, but they didn't before because no one asked, right? Some people will actually just send reports. So they'll send you like a monthly report. This is also too, if you're pushing people back to their site and they are getting they're getting something from it, oftentimes they're going to be really open to sharing that information with you because they want you to push it more, right? So if they make it easier for you, then you'll potentially give them more as well. Another way to track this as well is just on the end of the sale. Obviously, it's going to incorporate all of the sales because if you don't have the information to track specifically who came from where, then you're not going to know, right? But ultimately on your end, you can track how many people are purchasing from that platform. Is that correct?
So I get constant contact. I can see the number of people that click that link, and then
Yes.
I segment that link into a different mailing list where they're interested in hardware or whatever, and I can promote that later. So I can measure that click rate, and then I get the output of, okay, well, we sold X number of units off of this, and I actually need to process that. So they don't do a lot of work, but I want to see the conversion. Like there's that blank space in the middle, right?
So do you guys currently track the amount? Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, the numbers of purchases from that platform on a general basis on your end? So what I would do is, a general consensus is, you could, if you have numbers for, you know, a period of time. So say you're tracking monthly. So January, February, it's May now, right? End of May. So if you have numbers from now until May, you could average those out monthly as to how, this is obviously going to be a weird time because of the situation, but generally speaking, on average, when you're not doing any ad campaigns, you're selling an average of this much product or dollar value, depending on if you're, because you can probably sell smaller items and bigger items, right? So you could average maybe a dollar value or a product piece. So you sold like how many pieces. Then when you do ad campaigns specific to that, then you would take those numbers and then figure out the comparison based on your averages. So say you average, I'm going to use really round numbers, you have no idea what you guys would do, but say you sell like 10 computers on average a month off this platform. And then you run ads for June and July, and those months you sell an average of 20. Then you can figure out approximately what your average is. Obviously, it's not going to be specific, but if you know on average how much you do spend and then what the increase is, then you should be able, then you'll be able to figure out approximately what you're doing from it. Again, it's not specific. Ultimately, if they'll give you tracking on it, that's really the best for it. However, those average numbers would be really interesting to look at too, right? And maybe you have, do you have peak seasons for selling on those platforms, do you find?
Honestly, we have very little data for selling on these platforms. We're trying to get more into the online space, so I don't know. I mean, we certainly have peak seasons for purchasing generally, and for like people asking for advice on platforms, but we haven't been a big retail play, and it's gotten bigger since COVID because people don't want to go to Best Buy. They don't want to be around other people. So they're
Totally.
the local shop with the the contactless drop off to come pick it up. Well, I don't want to spend half of my day now dealing with a one-off computer deal all the time. I want to automate this process and make it simpler.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. Like that's the best way to do it for you guys, and I could totally see that. And it's good that you've recognized that that situation in this situation, and do try to take advantage of it, because I mean, even as a consumer of electronic products, I would rather buy from the small local guy than the big chain often as well, because I feel like I get better service, or I'm talking to someone who knows a little bit more about what they're talking about. Not saying anything bad about big box places. They employ people, and I think that's wonderful too, but just generally speaking. The other thing too is, like, I've worked with companies that they don't have any tracking information, that so they weren't using a website, and they were doing direct off of social. So they were pushing people to call or book with from their social platforms. And these people tracked manually. So they literally in their office, like in their retail space, had like a tracking paper beside their phone, because they obviously have like an office phone, right? Like you would as well. Lots of places don't. They would manually track. Okay, someone called about this, track it. Or we did a sale about this, track it. Or they booked this, track it. And they manually tracked. Obviously, that's a lot more work. But if that's the way you have to do it initially, then at least you get a gauge, right? Like you don't need to track it that way all the time, but it's still getting a gauge. And it is a lot more work, but at least you get a good understanding of if you're getting value back for what you're doing. I think specifically in your situation, if they don't give you those analytics, you could easily just track your average sales, or even your total sales. So if you did 12 in January, 10 in February, 15 in this month, whatever, and then the number should go up if you are doing ads for those products specifically. The other thing that's tough to or to keep in mind when doing ads for specific products is to not give people too much, and this goes for everyone, not give people too much information, because it overwhelms people. So giving them like, this is the best thing we offer for this, and this is why it's the best, or whatever, rather than like, we have these 10 computers and they're all awesome. Which one do you want? Because then people are like, it's too much, I can't do that, right? So going through different products and selling those products specifically for those benefits makes it a lot easier for people. This is obviously talking specifically about products, but so yeah, I don't know. Does that help? Did I give you information?
Yeah, absolutely. And we
Okay.
sell based upon feature. Like
Exactly.
this particular one was, hey, this has a privacy camera. Like whatever. It doesn't. It's one feature, not a bunch of spec lists.
Exactly.
I kind of wanted to be able to say, okay, well, your website is actually designed poorly, and that's why we're dropping, this particular promotion over this particular promotion. And we have a great relationship with them, so I'll reach out and see if they can provide that data.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you might be surprised, like they might just hopefully offer you lots of feedback or information. So, and they're a tech company too, probably, right? So they would be tracking that. Does anyone else have questions?
I don't know if you saw my helpful question there, Matt. Can you just ask the customers who referred you?
Well, these ones are coming through an online platform, but maybe you can add a box check here. We actually did that on this on McCollum. Sorry, I totally interrupted there. On the McCollum roofing one, we actually put on the quote form, how did you hear about us?
That's what I have on my quote form, and it gives me a chance that if it's another customer that I can be like, hey, thanks Matt for telling your parents that I should come and cut down their tree or whatever, right?
Yeah, we don't have a referral program at the moment, but that's
no, I just mean to ask customers right now. Overwhelmingly, a lot of people come from Google, and then probably like 1 in 12, 1 in 15 come from the phone book, right? And it's always really tough because of the age of my customers, whether or not I should put a phone book ad in again, right? Like that's just for my business, right? Yeah, I mean, it's because when I go to Chris, like when I try to spend the advertising dollars, I have to make a case to Chris that I'm like, okay, so this is for the 25 people over the age of 60 that still use a phone book. So the $400 ad is a value, right?
Yeah, that phone book, they're expensive.
And that's like legit, like it's just slightly bigger than a thumbnail. And like my competitors are all spending like $2,000 on like that, right? And I'm like, what? Anyway.
If you have recognized as well, though, that people are.
Sorry, that's my
That's okay. If you recognize people are coming from Google, though, that's another. I mean, that's an avenue that you should be looking at then too, right? And I do think, I know for myself personally, if I was looking for tree removal, I mean, obviously I know you, so I don't need to Google you. But if I didn't know, that would probably be the first place I would go. If not, I would talk to a friend who's had a tree removed, right? But if you don't, that's a really, like, to me, that seems kind of like your best bet. I don't want to, I mean, I'm not telling you to go spend a bunch of money there, but I could see some value for you, is what I'm saying. Okay, perfect. Are we feeling good? I can carry on here. Does anyone else have any questions about these analytics? We kind of went through a lot here, but good. Okay. Lessons learned. So let's talk about some lessons here. Oh, I looked at the time, but I didn't actually look at the time. Okay, we're getting close here. Okay, so let's make your campaigns better. We've obviously learned a lot of things along the way. I'm sure there's a lot more things we will learn. If you guys have learned anything along the way in your online advertising or digital marketing, or really anything, I would be really happy for you guys to share it. We can maybe just keep those stories into the question section, but the more we can learn from each other, the better off we can be in the end. So please feel free to share if you have something you'd like to share. Okay, I've said this many times. Does your copy on your website fit your campaign? Super important. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story, just so that this really resonates with you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, and hopefully I haven't told it before. We started working with a new client and we did some funnel advertising. Lesson learned on our part that we should have looked further into information before we started. We went straight to the funnel because that's what we were trying to do. So we went there and perfect, this is what we need to do. We set up the campaign for them. We had people going right back to their services page, which makes sense. We're talking about services. They're a service provider. We're like, this is going to be awesome. We're so great. Sent everyone back there. The campaign did really well on the social side. Tons of people went back to the website. That was great. No one was clicking through on a conversion. So we're like, what is happening? Why are people going back to the website, but they're not actually booking a service? What's happening? Everyone seems interested, but then they're bouncing. So we dug a little deeper. We were sending them back to the service page. However, the service we were specifically talking about was below the scroll. It was actually right at the bottom. That was ridiculous. Really big lesson learned. All we did was flip the content on the actual page. Like, it was still a service page. We just flipped it so that the service we were talking about was at the top. And we added in more calls to action because there was quite a bit of services. So there was like service 1, book a service, service 2, book a service, get more info, whatever your call to action is, right? So we added in a bunch of call to actions. We flipped the services so it made sense. So what we were talking about was above the fold, and it's improved significantly. So just make sure that you're checking those things, because people will go back and then they're going to be like, oh, this isn't what I'm looking for. See you later. I'm not interested in trying to find it. Okay. Did you supplement your advertising? We talked about this last time and briefly at the beginning. So you're doing a funnel or you're doing any kind of advertising. Are you supplementing it? Oh yes, here. Local ads. Are you running local ads as well? Are you doing blog posts to talk about additional content or giving additional content about it? Are you writing additional content? What else are you doing to supplement that advertising? And if you are supplementing it, make sure you're tracking that as well. People are coming from these other places. Great. Why are they getting there? How are they getting there? Let's look at that. Utilize Facebook Pixel. We didn't talk about this at all, but I briefly want to talk about Facebook Pixel. Has anyone heard of Facebook Pixel? No. If you have, just type a yes. I see that Rita's thumbs upping me. Good. Okay. So we'll talk about Facebook Pixel here a little bit. This is a tool that Facebook offers where they can put a little tracker on the back end of your website. Similar to like analytics, how they track on the back end of your website, Facebook has another tool that you can do that. You can do it at the same time. What they do is they track people who are coming from Facebook back to your website, and then kind of what they're doing, where they're going. There's lots of information that they gather on them. And then they are sort of tagging them so that when these people are going to other places on the internet or other places on Facebook, you can then retarget them with advertising. So a few cautionaries on this. To be honest, we don't use it a ton. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it because I've been retargeted a lot. You don't want to retarget people too much because you don't want it to look like you're following them. People don't like that. They don't like to be followed and creeped, and they are already. And if you make it really obvious, then they're not going to be really happy about it. However, there's value in this as well. So if this is something that interests you or you want some more information on it, you can look into Facebook Pixel. It's quite easy to set up. You can just do it on your Google business page. It'll give you like a number basically that you put on the back, or some code rather, that you put on the back of your website. Anyways, interesting to look at. Quick story about, it's not actually Facebook Pixel, but when we found out that we were expecting this time, I was trying to think of like things that I needed. And I was like, oh, I need to get baby monitor. I think a new baby monitor. The one we have is crap. It's whatever. So I was looking, not on Facebook, just on the internet, for baby monitors. Anyways, looked at a bunch of different places, whatever. I was laying in bed one night, whatever. Turned my phone off, went to sleep. The next morning, I got an email from Best Buy that said, we know you were looking at this, and had baby monitors. Anyways, I don't really care because I'm in this world and it doesn't really bother me. However, people don't like that, right? You don't want to be tracking them so much, or at least don't tell them, I saw you were looking at this. It freaks people out. So keep in mind when you are tracking people like that and you are retargeting them, it needs to be done in a way that doesn't freak people out, unless it's your industry. I also know, I guess another side story, I know a marketing company that sells to marketing professionals. So these are people that expect this to happen. A marketing company selling to marketing professionals, when you look at their website, a product that they're selling, like a digital product that they're selling, they have retargeted saying that, we know you're interested in this product and we've retargeted you and we should teach you how to retarget. So they're selling what they're doing to people who are looking for what they're doing, which is retargeting. That's different. That's fine. It's allowed. Obviously a really specific situation. Did someone have a comment there?
The classic example or classic Target example of them outing a pregnancy that was a secret and getting sued for it.
Right.
No more comment. Yeah.
Don't search anything about being pregnant until you're announcing it.
I actually have a funny story about that too.
Are you going to tell us? Or you just...
I signed into my Google account on my husband's computer when we were pregnant the first time around at work. And to print something off, I was on my Gmail. I signed into my Google account, and then it linked to Google. So then the guy, one of the coworkers, went on and was searching, and like all the search history was there from my Google searches of like, holy shit, am I pregnant? What does this mean? And then so his coworker went up to him and went, "Are you guys expecting?" This is way early, but yeah, I outed myself. You got to be careful.
You got to be careful. That internet, I tell you, it's tracking you. Okay, utilizing app support. So all of the social media platforms have business support attached to them. Facebook has Facebook for Business. They have a ton of support on there and a ton of learning and a ton of information that you can use. And their information generally should be the most up-to-date information. So go in there and have a look at that. Instagram Business is another, is the platform that Instagram uses. Again, tons of information, all the relevant information. And LinkedIn has LinkedIn Business Solutions. These are all sites that have been set up specifically by the social platforms that they want to teach you about how to use their platform best so that you'll use it. So utilize those platforms if and when you can. Again, if you don't have time, that's fine. Any information or questions about that? I'm going to be pushing time here, I feel like, yeah. Okay, tips and tricks. We're going to run through these quickly. I just put a few here because I didn't want to, Alex told me I overwhelmed her. How to be better. How to be better, not at life, just at online marketing. If you have any tips on how to be better at life, please share them. Okay, schedule time for planning. So this is really important, and honestly, this is going to help you out so much. I literally wrote here, if you're not doing any planning currently, just start with an hour, one day, once a week. 1 day a week. Yeah. Anyways, however I wrote that. So planning ahead of time saves you from like, oh my God, it's 6 o'clock and I haven't posted anything on social today. Or, oh my God, it's this time and we haven't posted anything this week, or whatever it is. And you're trying to last minute think of something to put up there or last minute to do. Just set aside some time to make a plan, even if it's just for 1 week. It'll really help you. You'll feel a lot better about it. This goes for both digital and traditional marketing. Obviously, if you have a team, I don't know if anyone has a marketing team or anything, but you would set aside more time than that. Are you the marketing team? Good job, Matt. Oh, Rita, yeah, we got teams on here. Okay, another tip, repurpose your content. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here, guys. Use content that's already been created. Pull some content off your website. Pull some content off your brochures. Pull some information off of products like Matt, for you guys. I'm sure that your suppliers are giving you content on their machines, on their stuff. Use that content, right? I mean, obviously that's not going to be super fluffy, fun content, but repurpose anything that you can. People often don't see your content all the time either, right? So if you're reusing it and rewording it, that's totally fine. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Brainstorm with a group. This is so much easier than trying to do it all by yourself. If you are able to brainstorm with a group or a person, that's fine. Did I write a thing? Oh no. It'll make your life that much easier. This is something that we do with our clients on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, depending on what they are. We just come together and we just talk, and we have meetings about what it is that's going on with them, what's going on in the world, what's going on in what needs to happen, if there's any sales or deals coming up. Talking about it with another person makes it a lot easier. And for those one-man teams that you guys have, it is challenging. See if you can pull someone else that you work with and talk about it with them. If not, talk about it with a friend or someone else that you know. Just be like, hey, can you chat with me about this? What do you think about this? And generally they're willing to give you kind of some feedback and some bounce for that. It does make your life a lot easier. So if there is someone you can brainstorm with, highly recommend. Understand your audience. Who are you talking to? If you're not engaging with them, they're not listening. So this is just, if you're putting out tons of content out there and you're not getting any engagement, you're doing a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. So you really want to make sure that you're talking to who your audience is, so that you're getting the most out of it. Don't do a bunch of work for no reason. Yay, everyone's gonna be so awesome. Okay, that's it. Questions? What? Oh my gosh, 3 minutes to spare. You guys got 3 minutes of questions.
Amazing. I was a little nervous just because, not to bring it up again, but there's so much information.
I know, sorry about that.
No, it's good.
I try not to go too quick, but also not too slow, right? You wanna,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's talk.
Matt, I always feel like you have lots of questions. What is brewing in that?
Bring them. I'm like glowing. I'm glowing yellow here from my yellow screen now. It's awesome. Looks like I have a golden tail.
Matt and Rita would be at the front of the class if this was a physical classroom, for sure.
Always sit in the front row.
I absolutely sit in the front row, and then everyone is not distracting me.
Okay. Everyone should turn their mics on, I feel like.
Some people might be multitasking right now.
I know. I was going to say that at the beginning. Close your other tabs and turn your phone.
I don't really have a question. I just have I guess a comment about Facebook Pixel and like branding and how, sometimes some of these strategies don't fit with our brand whatsoever. Like we're trying to position ourselves as a security expert, and we're running around, tracking you and sending you ads all the time. It's like, well, we're trying to stop people from doing that. So we don't really want to necessarily engage in that behavior, even though it may be beneficial to us. But maybe I'm just in my head about it, and we should be, and nobody will think about that. Someone like yourself will be like, yeah, actually that is, I could use a new G Suite license, like it could save $2 a month or whatever. And that's
maybe you could use that as a spin for your ads. Be like, look how easy it was for us to find you. You should consider new security software.
Okay, so my comments on that. So I agree with what you're saying. I agree that if you are the person that's providing a sense of security, that tracking someone like that can potentially give someone the feeling of not having security. So I can see that it could go both ways for sure. I think it would really depend on what the product or service is that you are retargeting them with. So if it's like a product sale or something like that, this is also my personal feedback on it. I don't mind. I don't really care, honestly. If I'm looking for baby monitors because I want to buy a baby monitor, if someone sends me an ad for one and I'm like, oh, it's a good one, it's on sale, sweet, thanks for sending me an ad so I don't have to look for it. I don't mind. But I know a lot of people do mind. And I have been retargeted quite aggressively to the point of annoyance where I specifically didn't do something because of it. So that's where I think that there's a balance of how much you can do. And you can use Facebook Pixel and not use retargeting and just get more information from them. But is there a need for it? Personally, I don't think so. But again, it depends on the business and what they're selling and what they're looking for. So some people need to be reminded constantly about things and some people don't. So I would really give it some thought on your audience, absolutely, and the specifics of what you'd be using it for. Again, we don't use it. I don't actually use it with any client right now because I'm undecided on it, and I shouldn't be because this is my industry and I should be on these new, it's not a new thing. It's been around for a while, but I should be on it. But
it's become public. It's used, everybody knows about it. And my visceral reaction is when somebody's selling me something that I just Googled, or even now I just talked about a particular product. I use a brand name like Cliff Bar. Now I'm going to get Cliff Bar ads, and I will never buy a Cliff Bar again because I know they're doing this. I know they're on the back end, and I'm just like, no, I don't like it.
Before we started this, you guys asked about my glasses. Since then, I've gotten an email from them.
Right.
So,
wait, are you saying your computer's listening to you and advertising to you?
Your phone is.
Your phone.
Are you kidding me?
No.
So true. So
Because-
creepy.
Because there was a thing about how. That's really cool, dude. That's my coworker here. My daughter is sitting beside me on the iPad. Okay, because I heard that Apple and Google had the information about people movement because they're tracking our cell phones during COVID. So they were able to be like, people are staying at home. And I was like, you know that? And that freaked me out.
That's just one application of it.
Oh, and I feel like that
You want,
like makes sense. If you have location tracking on your phone, then of course they can track where you are.
they can
It will
track where you
chip
are
us
even while the
It
phone's
will
off.
come.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so I guess in the end, ultimately it needs to be dependent on what the product or service is that you're offering, how aggressively you're retargeting people, and how important that is for the business, that like for your business, right? That's, and I would look into more information on it. Again, I can't give you a ton of information because we don't use it, because I'm not sure how I feel about it. So I think you can get so much value from it. That being said, everyone's using it, right? Like not everyone, people are going this way. So are we going to be left behind because we're not using it? Possibly, right? So is it important to at least have the information? Yes. And I should have more information on it to be able to offer you, because this is literally my business. But I don't, because I've been cautious of it. So anyways, if I would suggest looking into it. And I know that there are some companies that use it quite predominantly. And we do have a client that I mentioned it to, and we might try it with to see kind of how it works and do like a test run on it. So in that case, I'd be happy to share some feedback with you too of how things go. Yeah. Did that answer? I know that wasn't a question, it was just a comment, but
Yeah.
I like it. I like engaging comments too. That's great. Anyone else have questions or comments or feedback or anything?
Thank you for all the insights and information and whatnot that we've learned over the last 3 workshops. Also, thank you for being able to roll and put this into an online format so that we can all eat McDonald's at our desks while listening to you. So I really appreciated it. I found a lot of the content very, very helpful. So
I'm so glad to hear that. I wasn't sure how I would feel about the online platform, and I mean, other than my bed in the background, I liked it actually. I wasn't sure on the first one, and I think it was good, and then I feel much better on this one. But from I would ask you guys from a learning perspective, did you feel like you were able to focus and pay attention, and did you like this environment, or do you prefer being in a classroom style? Because we might be able to go back to that one day, but I like both. So I'd be interested in how you felt you learned a little bit better, or any feedback on it. So feel free.
I feel like the part that I miss is like being able to ask Matt 3 questions while we're milling around putting our jackets on, or or high-fiving Alix because I came in loud, or saying hi to Jamie because I haven't seen her. Hey Jamie, I'm waving at you now. I don't know, is her microphone working?
I know, I was gonna say, I think other Jamie was gonna ask a question too. I saw her talking, but I didn't hear anything. Might have been on.
So I mean, that's the part I miss, but in terms of actually like getting work done and learning, I think it's been really good.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I got to book it. I got a quote booked. So take care. Hope to see you all in real life someday soon.
We are going to send this out in a video, as we mentioned at the beginning. And Ashley is also, we're going to work on getting a little survey put together to get some of your feedback. For sure. We always want to do that. So yeah, in the meantime, if you have anything, you've already been bugging Ashley. So go ahead.
Yeah, feel free to contact me. And yes, we are going to send out a survey, and please, totally honest feedback. Like, don't worry about hurting my feelings. It's important for me to make this the most value that people can get from it. And sometimes it's hard to judge based on the business, because some people have big business, some people have small business, some people are the business owner that are doing the marketing, and some people work for the business. So I'm just trying to make it really fit to all of those categories. And if there are ways that I can improve, please tell me. I want to know so that I can make it the best that it can be, because the plan is to offer it again. So we want to make it that much better. And yeah, I appreciate all the feedback. So please don't be afraid to hurt my feelings. I mean, don't try to, but Give me a-
No trolls. No trolls.
No
Keep the
trolls.
under the bridge. That's it.
Um,
All
Jamie,
right,
I
everyone.
think she's still trying to ask a question, or maybe she's talking to someone else.
Oh,
But her mic's off. Anyways, Jamie, call me if you have a question.
oh, she's busy. Everyone's distracted. All right.
Well, thank you, Ashley. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you so much. It was nice
Bye.
to
Thank
do
you.
workshops with you.
Bye.